So I just got back from the Salt Sea, Yamamelech, the Dead Sea, and I just want to make a little video because it was a really amazing weekend and lots of things happened. So I went to the sea this weekend, and as I was packing in Jerusalem, the Dead Sea is only 30 minutes, 40 minutes from Jerusalem, so it's very close, and it's a very special place. And I find that I go there lots I find myself there lots on the moons, and yesterday I was there, it was the solstice. And I find that I'm just there on very special days lots of times, and I'm there with a lot of awareness. Like I really go there, and it's very hard not to be present in the salt sea, because all there is the salt and the water, which is the salty water, and the mountains and the desert, and it's just very present there. And I find that I go there lots in this presence. And so this time I went, and as I was packing, I found an old orgonite that I had made like years ago on the farm, and I decided to take it with me. It kind of created the journey for me. So I went down, spent the night at the Salt Sea with some friends, and the next day and all night I was awake. I didn't sleep, and watched the sun come up, and then the next day I felt like I had to do something with this orgone, and there was a whole story behind the orgone. So these orgones were ones that I had made in the farm in the Jordan Valley a few years before, and I was experimenting with them, and I was making just lots of these orgones. They didn't look very pretty. And there was some neighbors there, and they'd come by and they asked if they could take some and try them. I was like, sure, you can take one or two, and they ended up taking about 5, I think. And they had them for a week or so, and then they brought them back. And all through the week they were coming over and visiting, and they were saying their dreams were really intense, and they were having lots of really strong dreams. And after a week they decided to bring them back, and there wasn't anything bad. It just they felt like there was just lots happening, and it was kind of affecting them, and they didn't understand, and they were new for me too. So I started noticing that these things were really affecting dreams. And then there were a couple of young guys that were traveling, and they came and they were volunteering at the farm for a little bit, and they ended up taking one of these orgones also, these little devices I had, and I didn't hear from them again. I was just kind of giving them away because they weren't that pretty, and I was just testing with them. So they took them, and I didn't see them again. And about, I don't know, 6 months later, I was out in the nature, and I was visiting a friend, and she was living outside, and she was just outside by a tree, and I was looking around the tree, and she had a few crystals around there and around her camp, and I noticed one of these orgone devices, and I was like, that looks like the things I was making. Like, who else would make them like this? I said, where did you get this? And so she told me this big story. And she said that she was living at Yamamelech. Lots of people live at the Dead Sea. There's an area where people will live all year round there. There's a guy that's been living there for 20 years. Many other people that I know, lots of friends, have been living there for 7, 8 years. And they just live in the nature. They just live underneath the trees in this very harsh environment. It's a very special place. Very special people, hold a very special energy there. So she had been living there for a year or so. And she said these 2 young guys came to Yamamelech with this orgone device. And she started to tell me the story. And at the Dead Sea, where these people are, it's kind of a small little community. So you have to imagine just living out in nature, and everybody's together at nights playing music, or they come together near the fire, and people tell stories and they sing music and stuff. So stories go around lots in these little areas where people live in the nature. So these guys brought this, these 2 young guys brought this orgone to the Salt Sea, and they didn't know what to do with it because they said it was really affecting their dreams. And so they left it at the Salt Sea with this girl. And she said for the next month at the Salt Sea, at the Dead Sea, the community there was playing with this thing, and they didn't know what to do with it. And they noticed it was affecting the dreams of whoever would have it. And she said it went around from camp to camp, and different people tried it at different nights, and they all were agreeing that it was really affecting their dreams. And they didn't know what to do with it. And at a certain point, she said they felt like it was almost cursed. So they went and they buried it somewhere at the Dead Sea, the Salt Sea, just on their own. She said after a couple days, they all felt like it was wrong to bury it, so they went and they found where they buried it, and they dug it back up, and they brought it back out. And she said this whole thing, it went on for a month as they tried, different people took this thing at nights and tried to sleep with it, and it was a whole event for over a month. And then she ended up keeping this thing, and she brought it with her to this camp. So I started to realize that these devices that I were making were working with dreams. I mean, they progressed since then into the pendants that I make. But it was a really interesting story. So I hadn't thought about that for 3 or 4 years, and how when I first started making these devices, they found their way to the Salt Sea, and how many times I had found my way to the Salt Sea in my journey also. Something with the Salt Sea and the Dead Sea is very special. it's very connected to my journey. So yesterday I went there and I found one of these pendants just as I was one of these orgone devices as I was walking out of the house, and I felt quite strongly I needed to take it, and so I did. And I realized that as I was working with the day at sea, I had always been working with the water before, and I realized that this time, in putting ideas into the water, this time as I went, I felt like I was about to do something with the dream world of the Salt Sea. Like, the Salt Sea contains all this information. You can see some of the other videos I made about the pendants and how powerful the Salt Sea is. I felt like this time I was to drop one of these things off, and it was going to start affecting the dreams, not only the water reality of this world, but the dream reality of this world somehow. It was really clear to me. So I took one of these pendants, and I didn't know where, or one of these orgones, I didn't know where to put it, so I ended up putting it in a spring, a freshwater spring, just a few, like 100 meters up from the Dead Sea, and it flows down into the Dead Sea. And I felt like it needed to go into the fresh water for some reason. I felt like the fresh water and the salt water kind of connecting together were something special. So I did. I found a place to bury it in a freshwater spring there. And okay, so today we made a mission. We're at the Dead Sea here, and we're just near the spring. Let's go over here. I'll show you the spring. And dropped an orgonite that we made. I made into the spring here. Dead Sea. Spring. There's a little spring. It's a freshwater spring, so you can come and wash here after you're in the salty water. It's really nice. And I found the creek that goes out. It's just over here. And I put the orgone back in there. And there's a whole story about the orgone and the Dead Sea. It was here a few years ago, and there was a whole story about it. Anyways, I'll tell that in another thing. I just wanted to watch this, and so here we are. Had a nice night. We camped here last night. It's a beautiful place. Yeah, it was a wonderful weekend, and so all through the day I just kept thinking and working with this water and hanging out near the water and just doing my stuff. And at the end of the day, a friend came who was living there, and he brought a drum and he played the most amazing music. He actually started playing the drum, and it was very tribal. I didn't record it, but it was very tribal, and it reminded me a lot of back home in Canada, in Panachai. I don't know, he was singing just like the powwow songs there somehow, and then it kind of morphed into more Middle Eastern music. So anyways, he played this drum all through the sunset, and I felt like it was a real connecting moment for me from where I came from and also where I was, and that this music started as this kind of tribal music and blended into this Middle Eastern music, and he played it the whole time while the sun was setting, and I felt like it was just a very significant ending to a very wonderful day. And we'll see what happens. I put this device in the dream realm of the world somehow. That's what I feel like, to cleanse it and to purify it. So let's see what happens. And here's the little video, and I think I'll just keep making these little updates because such interesting things are happening. So that is all for now. Over and out.